So we're going to Brother Mike Imhotep, y'all. Let's give him a hand. All right, y'all. We can go ahead and let you do your spiel, family. Go ahead, good brother.
All right. Thanks for having me on today. Yeah, I agree with the minister here. Dr. King is one of our most misunderstood leaders. He was a revolutionary from the beginning. Highly educated. The brother was also a Pan-Africanist. The brother, even though he used nonviolence as a tactic, it wasn't a way of life. So they get that mixed up as well. I encourage people to read books that Dr. King wrote. Read where do we go from here, chaos or community. In chapter 2, he talks about the Black Power movement, and he praises the Black Power movement. Page 133, he praises the Nation of Islam and their ability to get African Americans off of drugs and alcohol and instill a sense of pride in their history into them. He just disagreed with some elements of the Nation of Islam. Read this book here. This nonviolent stuff that gets you killed, how guns made the civil rights movement possible. This is by Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr., who was a field secretary for SNCC for 5 years in rural Mississippi, organizing African Americans to get the right to vote. And in this book, they talk about numerous stories about the civil rights movement and numerous examples of how it was African Americans with guns protecting the civil rights workers. It wasn't just the Deacons for Defense and Justice that was founded in 1964 in Jonesboro, Louisiana, but it was numerous groups. Some of them didn't even have names. But in the book, and I posted this on my Facebook fan page, the African History Network, today, because there's so much misinformation. And this is one of the drawbacks of making Dr. King's, this is one of the drawbacks in having a federal holiday for Dr. King. Yes, he is deserving of it, but we have to, just like Juneteenth, we have to correct the history and protect the history. We have to do the same thing with Dr. King. Unfortunately, a lot of people that hold these Dr. King Day celebrations never read any books Dr. King wrote. I don't think they ever read any of his speeches, because you actually have to read his speeches. Okay, the good brother talked about his last speech, the mountaintop speech, right? April 3rd, 1968. In that speech, he leaves an economic blueprint to fight against white supremacy and racism. Okay, he said he called on African Americans there in Memphis, Tennessee, to boycott Wonder Bread and Coca-Cola and Hart's Bread and Seal Test milk. He told them, take your money out of the banks downtown and put your money in black-owned banks. He talked about supporting black-owned insurance companies, and he said that we have to always anchor our external direct action with the power of economic withdrawal. Okay, there's a reason why they only play on.
Explain that a little more simplistic, what you just said.
So what he's talking about, so when you study the modern day civil rights movement, okay, and we go and we look at the Montgomery bus boycott, okay, it wasn't the boycott that ended segregation on the buses. They had a three-pronged strategy. They had the mass protests, okay, they had the economic boycotts of the buses, the Montgomery Bus Lines, Inc., okay, and then they had a legal strategy, which was the lawsuit of Browder versus Gale, filed February 2nd, 1956 by attorney Fred Gray. And attorney Fred Gray was also Claudette Colvin's attorney. Okay, Claudette Colvin, the 15-year-old African-American girl who refused to give up her seat on the Montgomery bus, they say 9 months before Rosa Parks. But there were many people who did that before Rosa Parks. She just passed away last week, 86 years old. There were many people who did that before Rosa Parks. This is not a slight against Rosa Parks. So the lawsuit of Browder versus Gale, Aurelia S. Browder, Claudette Colvin, Susan McDonald, and Mary Louise Smith. These were 4 African-American women who also refused to give up their seats as well. They were part of this landmark lawsuit that went to the U.S. Supreme Court. In the final decision, after the appeals, final decision came down December 20th, 1956, that segregation on the buses in Montgomery, Alabama was unconstitutional. The reason why they the reason why they rallied behind Rosa Parks and pushed the issue then, because Joanne Robinson, who was the president of the Women's Political Council, they were trying to organize a bus boycott even before Claudette Colvin. But what happened was, in May 1954, you have the Supreme Court decision in Brown versus Board of Education. And because this is coming from the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that Plessy versus Ferguson 1896 U.S. Supreme Court case was unconstitutional, that made them think, okay, if we can't get justice in state court in Alabama, then we can go to the U.S. Supreme Court because this precedence has been set. This legal precedence has been set. In Montgomery, Alabama, keep in mind they're operating under the 1901 Alabama State Constitution, okay, which is a constitution after Reconstruction ends, and it's a constitution that imposes poll taxes and literacy tests and segregation. So this is coming from state government. The bus boycott that lasted 381 days, it was necessary. It put a drastic financial hurting on the Montgomery Bus Lines, Inc., as well as on the city economically. But it was the three-pronged strategy: the mass protests, the rallies. They're also going to form what's known as the Montgomery Improvement Association. And December 5th, 1955, they nominate Dr. King to be the president and the spokesperson of the Montgomery Improvement Association. But this was an organization that they created, E.D. Nixon and Joanne Robinson and others. They created this organization to guide and direct the Montgomery bus boycott. There also something that always gets left out of this conversation, right? The Montgomery bus boycott was patterned based upon the Baton Rouge, Louisiana bus boycott of 1953, led by the Reverend T.J. Jemison. Okay, go ahead.
Explain that, brother.
Okay, so what happened was,
people understand.
So there were constant protests and constant fights against segregation, against white supremacy and racism, all throughout the South. All right, so in 1953, Reverend T.J. Jemison in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, he launches this economic boycott against the buses because they were dealing with segregation as well. Their boycott lasted 8 days. Okay, it wasn't as successful as they wanted it to be. It lasted 8 days, but what it did was it gave a template for the Montgomery bus boycott. So E.D. Nixon, who was an organizer of the Montgomery bus boycott and the past president of the NAACP, Dr. King and others, they're calling Reverend T.J. Jemison for advice, and this is where they get the idea of the 300-car dispatch service. They created this 300-car dispatch service so people could get to work, get to the grocery store, get to church, and things like this, because they weren't taking the buses. So just because one movement doesn't work like you want it to, it becomes a template for another movement. Okay, there was in London, England, I think it was, there was a bus boycott in London, England by black people there, inspired by the Montgomery bus boycott. All right, so we have to understand, we have to really go and study this. And another aspect of the Montgomery bus boycott, in Dr. King's first book called Strive Toward Freedom, which came out in 1958, was about the Montgomery bus boycott. If you watch Eyes on the Prize, and I watch it every Dr. King Day and in February, I have the box set at home, Eyes on the Prize. The white housewives in Montgomery, Alabama, retaliated against Mayor William A. Gale. Mayor William A. Gale in January 1956 sent out a memo to the white housewives and told them to stop driving their black female housekeepers back and forth to work and things like this, because they were driving them back and forth home, okay, because of the bus boycott. Many of the white housewives said, if the mayor wants to come to my house, wash the dishes, cook the food, and wash the clothes, he's welcome to do that. Otherwise, we're going to keep doing this, right? So that's a untold part of that history. But when we go back and study the Montgomery bus boycott and economic withdrawal, this goes back to what Dr. King said the day before he was assassinated. He said we have to always anchor our external direct action with the power of economic withdrawal. What that means is when we have mass protests, we have to have targeted, sustained economic withdrawal strategies. Unfortunately, that is not being used today, even by many of the modern day, quote unquote, civil rights leaders, because they're in bed with corporations.
Hold on, no, slow down. Say it again.
I said, when you study the modern day civil rights leaders today and many of those organizations, even though they do some good work, I can't take that away from them. There's a lack of targeted sustained economic withdrawal strategies. The one from Target that was spearheaded by people like Pastor Jamal Bryant. He wasn't the only one. You had Nina Turner and others. He spearheaded the 40-day fast from Target, which really and was centered around Easter. So that really galvanized a lot of attention. But the reason why I think there's a lack of targeted sustained economic withdrawal strategies is because so many of these organizations are in bed with white corporations. Okay, one of the last most effective targeted sustained economic boycotts was in about 1981, Reverend Jesse Jackson against Coca-Cola. Okay, and when you go listen to the mountaintop speech, Dr. King talks about boycotting Coca-Cola in that speech. Okay, I wrote an 8-page article dealing with this. So we really have to understand. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this, good brother.
Yes.
I have to ask this.
Go ahead.
When we look at King and even Jesse Jackson back then.
Yeah.
I feel like that a lot of the black people who is boycotting, the ones you said in bed with the corporations, have abandoned those who are considered marginalized, poor, and very poor to really galvanize or even go to them and really sell the pitch that we need to boycott and why. I feel like a lot of them just overlooked them, whereas King and Jesse Jackson that particular time was more connected with the marginalized poor and the very poor and the poor, even the homeless people. They had some roots, and I feel like you could tell me what's your opinion about it, but I just feel like they have abandoned us, I mean, including myself, in that marginalized poor and very poor. They have abandoned us. Therefore, like you said, when they move forward and tell us not to do something, we just wag our hand because you ain't really we don't feel connected to what you got going on.
For a lot of them, and this is not to take away any of the work that they do in their communities, things of this nature, okay? Whether it's the NAACP, whether it's National Action Network, it's not to take away any of them. However, there are very few instances where they were actually engaged in a targeted, sustained economic withdrawal strategy. Saying that you have a travel advisory to South Carolina or another state is not the same as an economic boycott.
That's right.
And many of them are very afraid of economic boycotts. Now, I know Reverend Al Sharpton, he has this effort to support Costco and redirect dollars from Target, things like this. But they're very, look, a perfect example would be when they were trying to get the John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed in 2021 after Biden and Harris were elected, okay? And you had the bill passed the House of Representatives. No Republicans in the House voted for the bill. It was only no Republicans in the House voted for the bill. It was only Democrats. Okay, so they're trying to get it passed in the Senate, and instead of targeting the top 4 or 5 corporations that contributed to Republicans in the Senate to put economic pressure on them, right? Instead of doing that, they had protests in front of the White House. You had organizations having protests in front of the White House. So oftentimes we confuse activity with productivity and don't understand political pressure points. Biden was not the obstruction to the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. It was the 50 Republicans in the U.S. Senate. But no pressure was put on them. Economic pressure was not put on them. You had 16 U.S. senators who were in the U.S. Senate at that time who back in 2005 voted to reauthorize the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and all 50 of them voted no on the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. But overall, they didn't pay a penalty. Even Senator Joe Manchin of Virginia and Senator Kirsten Sinema of Arizona voted for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. They just voted not to change the filibuster. But all 50 Republicans voted no, and they really didn't pay a price. So we have to understand political pressure points. There should have been economic boycotts against the top 4 or 5 corporations that put those Republicans in place to put economic pressure on them. That did not happen.
So when he's talking about economic suppression, I just want to bring up something. what ended the bus boycott was not them not riding the buses. It was the 30-40% business loss downtown Birmingham that caused them to end the boycott. That was equivalent to $200,000 in today's dollars that they lost.
Actually, it was when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled December 20th, 1956 that segregation on the buses was unconstitutional. They ruled in November, and then the defendants appealed. The final ruling came down December 20th, 1956. That's why the bus boycott ended that day.
What I'm saying, but the white business owners said it was bad for business because they made so much money.
Yeah, it was bad for business, but that was a public utility.
Right.
So that's why the bus line Inc. capitulated, because the U.S. Supreme Court ruled against them.
And I'm just saying, further support what you're saying is when you go after the corporations and start messing with that dollar and messing with that pocket, and you put pressure on those who they support and put in office, especially who are not supporting good policy that benefits all or benefits us. That is exactly what you're saying and what we need to do. And I think that is the strategy that we need to learn from history, is that economic pressure that we have to not be afraid to do on, and even if we have to give up certain allies in certain ways, we ought to be able to do that.
It's targeted, sustained economic pressure, and they had a strategy that was laid out. They created an organization to guide the boycott. They had rallies to keep people engaged. They created an alternative transportation system for people to be able to get back and forth to work and church and grocery shopping and things of this nature.
But I want to say that, Brother Mike, Brother Mike, we don't have that.
What do you mean?
What I'm saying is, how you said that they had engagement, they had rallies, they had rides to get people back and forth to work, right? So when you tell people not to shop at Target, who don't have a car and Target's near them, what is the plan to help them get food when they can't get to Target?
Right. So we have to have those alternative measures, and really, it's the when you have successful economic withdrawal strategies, is based upon a well thought out and implemented plan, as opposed to just a reaction.
Right,
okay. Okay. Another example would be the Tuskegee, Alabama economic boycott of 1957 that lasted 4 years. That lasted 4 times as long as the Montgomery bus boycott, and they put 100 white-owned businesses out of business, and that was over voting rights, because the state legislature in Alabama they gerrymandered the Tuskegee, Alabama district, and they gerrymandered it so badly that it locked out almost all of the black people in Tuskegee, Alabama, and they had a higher literacy rate than the white people in that area. Okay, so they had this economic boycott led to the lawsuit of Gomillion versus Lightfoot about 1960, 1961, and this case went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. They were able to defeat the white supremacists in the state legislature, but they had a 4-year economic boycott. Okay, this is how long it took to do it, but they were willing to sacrifice, and they understood the greater good. They understood what the purpose was. Okay, so this is why history is so important. This is one of the reasons why it's so important. The people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past, in the present, and the future to meet the needs of the community. And if Dr. King were here right now, he'd be in Minneapolis protesting right now. He would be protesting against lawlessness. He would be protesting against ICE running around snatching up people like modern day slave catchers. He would be protesting against militarism, because in 1967 he talked about the 3 evils: racism, poverty, and militarism. Okay, right now a lot of the detention centers that the migrants are being put in are owned by Core Civic and Geo Group. These are 2 of the largest privatized prison companies in the country, and they have massive government contracts. Okay, well, under the Obama administration, Core Civic and Geo Group in the privatized prisons were losing money. Okay, because in 2016, the Obama administration said they were not renewing federal contracts with privatized prisons. Well, Trump supports privatized prisons. So that's why the privatized prison companies donated to the Trump campaign in 2016, 2020, and 2024. They were losing money under Biden-Harris because there was a steady decline in violent crimes across the country. under Biden Harris. So the same. So you have African Americans who protest against the private prison companies, but then say immigration laws have nothing to do with me. ICE running around lawless has nothing to do with me. But they're sending the National Guard in from former Confederate states, right, into black communities. Okay, this is the same. This is very similar to what President Millard Fillmore did in 1850 after he signed into law the Compromise of 1850, which included the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, and they oftentimes sent military troops along with the U.S. Marshals to capture runaway slaves.
So I want to say that I want to talk about that briefly because I was somewhat conflicted with. Trying to, I guess I hold a sense of, and I'm gonna be honest, a sense of bitterness towards why some of the black migrants, migrants, and I say that with respect, not a disparaging way,
right?
Didn't want to vote for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
So now, you know, as you know, Roland Martin say FOFA.
Right.
You know,
now the chickens are coming home to roost.
Right. So I mean, and I don't stew in it, you know,
right.
Because when I begin to see the violence, man, when you start snatching women out of cars,
right,
shooting people in the face,
right,
you know, calling and I say this about black people, we're compelled to get involved. Our nature is to get involved when wrong is in existence, right? This is who we are as a people. So when you saying this, good brother, about us going in and looking at the migrants and not being as activists, because I've been a person who spoke about it, being involved in it myself. You know what I mean? But at this point, when I see what they're really doing, you know what I'm saying? They're really coming at black people.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and this is what they're doing now.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Clobbing us upside the head. They took a pregnant black woman. I showed a video Thursday, and they just, Mr. Tight, they just threw her in the van.
Yeah.
Right? And this is what they're doing. So that was the game plan anyway.
Well, Donald Trump, when he ran in 2024, Donald Trump said that he would get 100% immunity against criminal prosecution against police officers for doing their job. And he said he was going to unleash the police. He also said he was going to have the largest deportation in American history. OK, now it's important for people to go back and look at the 1930s and 40s, because there was a massive deportation effort there. The U.S. government deported somewhere around 1.6, 1.8 million Mexican Americans back to Mexico. It started under Herbert Hoover in about 1929. They said that the Mexican Americans were taking jobs from white people. This is exactly what they said, and they had a program called American Jobs for Real Americans, something to that effect, right? After all was said and done, they found out that about 60% of the people they deported back to Mexico were here legally. They also found out that the people they deported were contributing to the gross domestic product of the country. They were working. They were buying food. They were buying clothes. They were actually creating jobs, not taking away jobs from people. So now, now in December 2025, the Trump administration says that they have deported somewhere around 650,000 people, but then there's a little more than somewhere about 1.3, 1.4 million who they said self-deported. So they say 2 million immigrants have left the country, but the black unemployment rate keeps going up.
Facts.
Okay, the black unemployment rate goes up, and in October of 2025, Trump's Labor Department said that because of their immigration policies, the cost of produce, the cost of food was going up because they were taking away the labor force.
So
let me say this: said 45% of farm workers are immigrants, either here legally or undocumented.
Facts. So I just want to add in what you were saying.
Yes.
And I played the video too before, where Trump had somebody on his administration that said that the people who were getting Medicaid, because they said, well, we get rid of immigrants who won't go to the field. She said, well, we're going to have the people getting Medicaid to go out there and work in the field. And I said, well, I'm going to tell you right now, black people ain't going to the field. We borrow our cousin, Brew Cost, and put their name on and say we them.
And white people are not going either.
Right. So I mean, I know.
There'd be more white people out in the field than black people.
Right, well, we do it because, and that's what I'm saying, man. It's
right.
And then I heard something, you tell me what y'all two going to think about this, because this is along the spirit of what we're talking about. Those people who hiring them to work illegally in the corporations, ain't none of them going to jail.
Right. They never do.
Donald Trump be the first one to go.
Right. Because back in his first term, he was caught with undocumented immigrants working at one of his resorts.
Yeah.
Okay. He was caught. Yeah, he was caught. So they never paid a price, right? But the other thing is there's numerous stories, and you can just Google this. There's numerous stories of white farmers across the country who, especially in the South, who would tell you that they can't find Americans to do these jobs in the fields, to pick the produce and things like this. Okay. And you have a lot of white farmers, Arkansas, Iowa, Arkansas voted, Trump won Arkansas by about 30 points, won Iowa 13 points. Those farmers are crying, begging for a bailout. They want socialism, right? They want socialism from the federal government, and you voted for this.
Right. Well, you
turn around and get mad when you want help, but now they want Donald Trump to turn $1 billion over of tariff money over to them.
Right. But you know what though? It trips me out. Why would you vote against your own interests? And this is my opinion. I think they thought that Donald Trump was only going to punish black people and the Mexicans
and Latino, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And they weren't going to do nothing to them. You know, they had the scapegoat, but he's not talking about us. And he's talking about the most dangerous. You got ICE agents chasing people in fields.
Right.
It's working for the farmers.
Right.
Now, farmers, y'all voted for it.
Right.
Now, what are you going to do now? Because black people, we ain't going back to the field. And I worked in the Sun before in the South.
Right.
And let me tell you, I was a little boy. It took one time.
Right.
I swear to y'all, with my uncle. I was young. I had a baseball game. He said, "Yeah, come work in the field." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll go pick some butter bean." Man, that sun was so hot. I said, "I could never been a slave." I'm straight on that.
Well, let me tell you this. They tried. The U.S. government tried this back in about 1968. They took high school and college athletes. They call them the A-team, and they took them out to the fields. It was after It was after the agreement with Mexico and the Mexican workers expired. They took them out to the fields. They were mainly white, and they had them working out in the fields for the summer. And that did not last very long because they did not want to work out there in that hot sun picking the vegetables and the fruit and things of this nature. It's called the A-team. National Public Radio has an article about this. Okay, so when I hear people saying, "Oh, well, you know, let the people on Medicaid go out there and work," and things like this, there's a history of especially white people in this country not wanting to do that work. Okay, there's a history of them relying upon migrants, and then when you talk about African immigrants, we talked about this before. We have to understand the same people who taught some African immigrants and immigrants of other color to hate some African Americans also taught us to hate ourselves. So we're dealing with the entertainment complex. We're dealing with the U.S. government and the images that are exported across this country. But this is why we have to be able to control media, because your thoughts create feelings, your feelings create actions and behaviors, your actions and behaviors create results. So we have to be able to control media, to control these images, because that determines how people act towards us.
To answer your question, I had a person who was one of my mentors in the finance area, who told me the reason why he voted for Donald Trump, even though he disagreed with 98% of his policies. He looked me in the face and said, "Frank, the reason why I voted for Donald Trump is because I believe he's going to preserve white people."
Oh, yeah. Yeah, what Trump said, I got it. When you go, and I dealt with this in my presentations on Project 2025, he talked about anti-white discrimination. He talked about, they dealt with the white birth rate. They dealt with the great replacement theory, all of this. So a lot of white people saw Donald Trump as the great white hope. They saw him as their last hope after the 2020 census showed that the U.S. population of white people dropped to 57%, and that's the first time since 1790 that it dropped below 60%. 1790 was the first time the census was taken. So when that census report came out, alarm bells went out among many white Americans, not all of them, because we know about 64% of Kamala Harris's votes came from white people. So it wasn't all white people, but it was enough to cause a catastrophe.
Explain what the great replacement theory is. a lot of us don't what we say, layman people don't understand what a great replacement theory is.
Okay, so you have some different versions of it, but it's coming from a lot of these conspiracy theorists, the Nick Fuentes, the Charlie Kirks, things like this. The Great Replacement Theory says that you have Democrats who are letting in undocumented immigrants of color into the country because they want to replace white people. You have them fearing the browning of America. This goes along with the browning of America. So they make it seem like this a plot to get white people or something like that. And they're focused on the white birth rate because the white birth rate is declining. Well, that's their fault. That's between you and him. That's your fault. What are you blaming? We don't have anything to do with that. Okay. So, and you have these right-wing conservatives who prey on these conspiracy theories. And at one point they were fringe conspiracy theories, but then they get disseminated by people on Fox News, disseminated by people like Tucker Carlson when he used to be on Fox News, things like that, and they've gone more mainstream. Okay, this is one of the things that's so dangerous about Trump because he has people around him like Stephen Miller, who advocate those things, and Stephen Miller is the main one behind these harsh immigration policies as well as the quotas that they implemented of 3,000 people arrested per day. Okay, and just because you arrest 3,000, that don't mean all of them here illegally. CBS News I think it was CBS Face the Nation this past Sunday interviewed Kristi Noem, and they broke down the facts. Only 47% of the ICE detainees actually have criminal records. Okay, only 47%. Kristi Noem said it's 70%. Even if it was 70%, you're saying 1/3 don't.
But see, this is my issue with the Republicans, and I'm going to call it spade a spade. Look at January 6th. Yeah. When you say that to a Republican, it becomes their kryptonite. Oh, then you go talk about because that was an insurrection.
Yeah.
So when you tell me that, now listen, if you tell me you believe in the policing of America, how did Trump come into office? His first thing he did, one of them, was pardon everybody for January 6th.
And y'all said nothing.
So it bothers me when they sit up now and say, "Oh, don't take the ICE agents; they're law enforcement." Well, what happened January 6th?
Yeah. They contradict themselves. Wait a second. The insurrectionists beat the Capitol Hill police officers and other police officers for 187 minutes, and Trump didn't do anything. They can't. When you confront them with it, they can't say anything. The reason why is because. The reason why is because they feel that the ICE agents as well as the National Guard are fulfilling Trump's promise, and they want this to be a white nation. And if you read the article from Axios.com from April 1st, 2024, 7 months before the election, it's called "Trump Allies Plot Anti-Racism Protections for White People." That was the name of the article. And it said if Donald Trump returns to the White House, close allies want to dramatically change the government's interpretation of civil rights era laws to focus on anti-white racism rather than discrimination against people of color. But we see these policies all across the Trump administration.
Go ahead, caller. Caller.
Hey, what's going on, gentlemen?
Hey, good brother Sly, how you doing?
Everything is everything. And look, everything you guys are saying,
you fading out.
I said, not only do I agree with everything that you guys are saying, but I have some things I'll add a few things to it. Now let's go back about servitude or how the farms were lacking in staff. June of last year, in Arkansas, there were temporary agents that were hired at $11 an hour to pick blueberries and other fruit, and you could work all the overtime you wanted, 7 days a week. That's how desperate it got.
Right.
It's just this past okay. And about the browning of America. And Brother Michael, you were on point because Stephen Miller Stephen Miller came out in March, I want to say, of 2021 and said white people need to start making more babies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Stephen Miller.
Yes.
But and then even before that census count took place, you guys need to get the back issue of National Geographic from April of 2018. On the front cover it says black and white. The entire publication is about the browning of the globe.
Yeah.
Not just America. It has the flow charts, it has the graphs and everything. National Geographic, April 2018. Get that publication, read it, and hang on to it.
Okay. All right. Thanks, brother. Hey, I just want to interject something quickly because I was going to share something from the book, This Nonviolent Stuff to Get You Killed, about Dr. King, and I got distracted. Okay. So an excerpt from the book says, visiting Martin Luther King Jr. during the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott, journalist William Worthy almost sat on a loaded pistol. Just for self-defense, Dr. King assured him. It was not the only weapon Dr. King kept for such a purpose. One of his advisors remembered the Reverend's Montgomery, Alabama home as an quote-unquote an arsenal, end quote. Okay, like Dr. King, many ostensibly nonviolent civil rights activists embraced their constitutional right to self-protection, yet this crucial dimension of the Afro-American freedom struggle has been long ignored by history. In the book, This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed, Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. recovers this history, describing the vital role that armed self-defense has played in the survival and liberation of black communities. Drawing on his experience in the civil rights movement and giving voice to its participants, Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr. lays bare the paradoxical relationship between the nonviolent civil rights struggle and the long history and importance of African Americans taking up arms to defend themselves against white supremacist violence. So now Dr. King eventually gets rid of his guns because Bayard Rustin convinced him to get rid of his guns. And he says, well, what happens if, you're defending your home during this Montgomery bus boycott, and then, that gets played up by the white controlled media, and then they say, well, you're a fraud because you preached nonviolence and then you shot and killed somebody. So he eventually gets rid of them. But he has men, Dr. King always had men around him with guns protecting him. Even before the Deacons for Defense of Justice started doing that, they weren't founded in 1964. Okay, so when you really, and there's another book called We Will Shoot Back as well that deals with armed resistance during the civil rights movement in Mississippi. There's a deep history behind armed resistance. We can go back to when brothers came home from the U.S. Civil War, and when the Union troops pulled out of the South. After the compromise of 1877, we organized ourselves, the former veterans organized themselves to protect their communities. We saw the same thing during 1919, during the Red Summer 1919. Former World War I veterans protecting their communities, especially in Chicago. That was one of the biggest ones. Okay, we saw it in 1921 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Former World War veterans were armed, and they shot back at the white supremacists. Not only that, it was a group of about 200 of them who went to the jail where Dick Rowland was being held to back up the deputy sheriff who was black and protect Dick Rowland from the mob of 500 white men who wanted to take Dick Rowland out and lynch him. These were brothers armed to the teeth. Okay, so we have a deep history of armed resistance and protecting those who were engaged in nonviolent direct action.
Well, I think, and see, that's the whole thing, man. They always, and I've said this, they always wanted to see a version of Martin Luther King that seemed docile or submissive.
Yeah.
And I began to listen to his speech. He even, and some people say that before he was assassinated, that he will begin to question the concept of nonviolence. And a lot of people don't know he embraced some of what Malcolm X was saying. This is what I was told.
Well,
so when I hear people, this is the first thing even Republicans cite Martin Luther King. They go straight to I have a dream, but y'all trying to kill every policy in protection of black people.
Well, not only that, they don't even understand that speech, because Dr. King calls out police brutality twice in that speech. He talks about poverty. He talks about segregation. He talks about the need for voting rights. And the name of the speech originally was Normalcy Never Again. And then it was changed to A Canceled Check, because he's talking about economics, and he's talking about African Americans being given a promissory note 100 years prior in 1863, and the promissory note, when we take it to the bank, is marked insufficient funds when we go to cash that promissory note. And he's calling out the Kennedy administration. This is something that he's doing. He's calling out the Kennedy administration. The speech is about dismantling white supremacy and racism. Okay. When you study it, and Clarence B. Jones, one of the speechwriters, wrote an article for the Washington Post. The phrase "I have a dream" didn't appear anywhere in that speech. He improvised after Mahalia Jackson screams out, "Tell him about the dream." This is toward the end of the speech. Then he shifts and reverts back to a speech he gave here in Detroit in June 1963, where he talks about the beloved community. But the beloved community is what happens after you dismantle white supremacy and racism. See, Republicans try to play this three-car Monte game. They try to shift and just talk about King's speech and the content of the character, things like this. They don't want to admit the white supremacy and racism Dr. King was calling out.
Right.
That still exists today.
Something else you pointed out, and I think this is very important, and this is something you and I have talked about in the past, is that he called out everybody, not just one body. He called out the Kennedy administration, Democrat, and he called out the Republican administration. And what people fail to understand, we have no allies in this fight if you are not for good policy. If you're for bad policy, I don't care if you got a Democrat on your card, or a Republican, or independent. If it's something that's going to suppress our people, it's bad policy, and we're going to fight against it.
Right.
Your label does not determine whether you're supporting me or not. It is your policy that determines whether you're supporting me or not.
And Dr. King was not a Republican. Okay, I know black Republicans. I know Alveda King, his niece, says that. I posted this article on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. No, Martin Luther King Jr. was not a Republican, but here's what he had to say about them. This is from thinkprogress.org, August 28, 2013. He called out Republicans. He called out Democrats. He didn't belong to a political party. Yeah, he supported Lyndon Johnson over in 1964 over Barry Goldwater. Senator Barry Goldwater of Arizona was anti-civil rights.
Yes.
Okay?
So let me stop.
Yeah.
So we got Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Running against Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
So Martin Luther King, by what you're saying, I'm just paraphrasing, would have definitely picked Kamala Harris.
Oh, absolutely.
Donald Trump.
Well, yeah. But okay, now this got to go to something else. A lot of people don't want to talk about this. Dr. King was a sexist also. And very few people want to talk about this. This doesn't take away from him, because this is why Ella Baker leads the Southern Christian Leadership Conference that she co-founded with Dr. King in 1957. Dr. King didn't think that women should have leadership positions in the movement and in their organizations. So Ella Baker was passed over for a permanent leadership position in Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And she ends up leaving the movement. And there have been articles written about this, and there's one dealing with the myths about Dr. King. But yeah, Dr. King, was a racist. But you got to understand, the modern day civil rights movement was led a sexist. Yeah, I'm sorry, he was a sexist. The modern day civil rights movement was largely led by black male Protestant ministers. So you coming from no offense, brother, but you coming from that black church, a lot of times there was sexism in that, and then they brought that into the movement.
You said it was, still is.
It still is, yeah. They brought that into the movement, and this is something that caused friction. But we see this going back to William Monroe Trotter and Ida B. Wells in the early 1900s. Go ahead.
Well, they said Booker T. Washington. Go ahead, we got a call. Go.
Hi, Tula. Hello, Gus. I just want to say, great show. Mr. Hotep, I believe.
Imhotep, yes. How you doing?
Yeah, great. I'm great. I just want to make a comment and say you're amazing, and you're such an educational, just a phenomenal man, I can tell from hearing you speak before in this week. And
Oh, thanks.
Pastor Frank, obviously I heard that your name was Pastor, but I didn't realize that you were actually a pastor at a few different churches, and I can only see that you're an amazing pastor, and your parishioners are very lucky to have you, and Tula, you know, I always support you, so. All right, great show, gentlemen, and thank you so much again.
All right, thank you. So, I just want to comment on what the brother Imhotep said, because sometimes, man, we resent truth. Truth is what it is.
Right.
And we have to deal with that.
Right.
That doesn't take away from who Martin Luther King was.
Right.
And we have to look at the climate at that time, as far as black men being taught that, you know, the men are the head of the household, but that doesn't take away from the dynamics that, and I look at that. And how many of us now, let's be real about this, black leadership that's in the clergyman or in politics are willing to say the things he said then, or stand up like he stand up, or stand up now like he stood up back then, absent what we addressed then. You know, for us to say, how many don't want to do it?
I tried to get a couple of pastors to go with me to Lansing to support a bill, MOP, money out of politics, and I thought I was asking them to walk on with a bed of nails. You know, and they said, "But why would you want to do that?" I said, "Because basically DTE is giving money to both sides of the aisle, and we get horrible service. Let's go up there and get money out of politics. Let's stop this, you know, everybody from, you know, putting money into politics so that we can just have real conversations." You couldn't get them to do it. But I think the biggest problem is that, and I take no offense to it, because the facts are the facts. You
right.
have, you know, with Martin Luther King being sexist, you know, what's really disturbing is that not only is that true, but, you know, some of our own people, own women, will not go follow the leadership of another woman because it's a woman. And I think that goes to, in my opinion, goes to our lack of education, and we need to be more avid readers of our own history and of the movement, so we can see that the power that was done and the power that was built, and so we don't have those blinders and that ignorant policy.
Well, you know, I tell people study African history. The queens in Zinga, they were powerhouses. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go over there and tell them, Brother Mike and Hotel, no, them sisters over there were powerhouses, and they led with an iron fist. So I'm not a person that believes that black women can't lead. I don't, because the first thing I said was, what your mama was doing.
Right.
Yeah, my mama burned me. I know she
right. So hey, good brothers, we got like 1 minute left, Brother Mike and Hotel. Listen, y'all brothers are always welcome to this platform. Brother Mike and Hotel called me this weekend. I contacted Pastor Frank. I said, oh yeah, definitely. So you brothers always got open platform. Brother Mike Imhotep, anything you want to say?
Just visit my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. It connects you to my social media, and follow me on YouTube at Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. We just reached 95,000 subscribers.
Brother Pastor.
Pastor Frank Jackson. I am organizing faith leaders across the city of Detroit to come join us with Moses. We're organizing faith leaders all across the state of Michigan, as we try to build not only power to make sure our voice is heard, not only in downtown Detroit, but across every city hall and the state house, to make sure that our people have fair representation and that we can take the thumb off our head.
Can you tell them what to contact you?
You can contact me at United Christian Church Detroit, United Christian Church Detroit.org, or Moses.org, MosesDetroit.org, or just Google that, and you can contact Priscilla Hardaway or DeJuan Bland or myself or Pastor Kofisa Walker. We're all the leaders of that the Faith Leader Caucus, and we'll be glad to put you in contact at our next meeting.
And see, that's what I'm talking about. Be about that. So y'all know I'm just gonna say, please, and I said this before, please donate to this show. Michael in Hotel said something that was powerful. He who control the media control the image. If you look at 88.1 FM, WHPR, 107.5, 863, we talk about stuff that ain't really just talked about on the radio. In the city or the metro Detroit area that deals with black people. The stuff he said on this show today, he was gonna sit there with a cancer. I'm lucky, but that's what I like about. I love Brother R.J. Watkins, Brother Henry Tyler, Brother Maxine, because they have allowed us to come on here and have black talk without worrying about that type of stuff, as long as it's real and keep it factual. So I'm asking people to please donate financially to the show. Send the money. You ain't got to send it to me. Send it to 160 Beacon Street, Highland Park, the Tula Kabone Show, or the Politics of Politics. All right, y'all. I want to say thank you. Y'all know what I always say. Listen to what people say. Watch what they do. What they do is who they are. Your health is your wealth. Your health is your wealth. Adopt a senior citizen. I mean that. Love your Uncle Billy. Love your Auntie Rose. Stay woke. And remember this program. Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. See y'all Thursday at 5 o'clock. Catch Politics and Politics You Decide. And Michael Imhotep be invited on that show too, Brother Frank. Politics and Politics You Decide. 5 o'clock Thursday. Have an amazing day. In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, be active. All right, y'all. Peace. Great show, y'all.
Excellent.
All right, everybody. Gotta get out of here. Talk to you later. Peace. Visit my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for this new 10-week online course. So we're going to teach this on Sundays, normally 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're running late today. So as soon as I finish this broadcast, I was going to start the class about 5:30 p.m. today. Because it's a holiday weekend, I'm going to do a quick introduction to the class so you could join us for that. The class is on sale, $80. You get 5 of my lectures free in digital download format, okay, when you register for this as well. Click right here, register here. You can do debit card, credit card, what have you. If you want to do it through Cash App, send it through our Cash App is here, $ the AHN show through Cash App. You click on the link. It takes you here. And if you send it through Cash App, follow it up with an email. You can email me through the website right here. Contact the African History Network at the top. If you send it through Cash App, follow up with an email. Let me know you sent the registration through Cash App. And this is our official Cash App account, $ the AHN show, SHOW. When you go to it, it'll say Michael. These are some fake African History Network Cash App accounts that have been stealing money from us. I'm still trying to get them shut down. Here's our PayPal link right here. Also, okay. So this is African empires, the Moors, and the transatlantic slave trade, 5000 BC to 1800 AD. Okay, so this is a new 10-week online course that I'm teaching. I've been teaching online history classes going back to 2017, and I put these classes together, put together the curriculum. There are about 200 slides in this class, 80 to 100 articles that we reference, 15 books. You don't have to buy any of the books. I'll show you screenshots of the book as well. The content is PG-13. You can use this with your children, okay? And it's very engaging. It is interactive also. There's a class chat, so you can ask me questions in the class also.